Welcome back to JH Diesel. Guys, I know a couple of you have been asking and you've been wondering where it's been, but who's ready for some airboat content? So I actually had some work done on the boat. Had to get a new sheet of poly put on the boat and had to have some patchwork done on the hull. Long story, I don't even want to get into it. It's kind of been a nightmare, but that's for another day. But we have to fix a bunch of stuff that, actually I will get into a little bit because it's screwed up, but we have to fix a bunch of stuff somebody did. The only thing that we really did correct was the poly, and so we're gonna get that done on it, and that's been done on it. So at this point we got to go dive into it a little deeper, fix some stuff. We had them hook a brake cable up. I guess this was the best way that they knew how to just zip tie it all together, and it's just a lot of stuff that we're gonna have to fix on this thing. We had a radiator put in it while they had the cage off, and I guess it's some people just don't take pride in their stuff like I do. So either way, we got that, and then as soon as I got it back, I tried to take it out, and the carburetor was messed up, probably from sitting at their place for over a month. So we are going to be putting a different setup on there. We're gonna be getting away from the carburetor, and we're gonna be going with some Holley fuel injection. I got a Sniper throttle body injection system for this thing, so we'll see how this thing does. But they say that just by adding the fuel injection system, you literally add, like, off the bat, like, it'll probably add 50 or 60 horsepower just by going from the carb to the fuel injection. We'll see if that's true. I don't know, but we're gonna find out, that's for sure. So we're gonna service the boat up, get it ready, get the Holley fuel injection on there, and get rid of our carburetor, go new school on it, and see how this thing runs with that setup, because I really don't want to do anything until the carb gave us problems. So the day it did, I say, you know what? We're going fuel injection, guys. I'm not a carburetor guy. So the current setup right now, it's running a quick fuel carburetor with MSD ignition box, and that's basically the system that it's running, all stock coils and everything on there. So let's see what happens if we up it a little bit. And I have not ridden this thing. Literally, guys, this has been a mess I've been dealing with since February, March time. So it'd be exciting to get this thing back in the water, and hopefully it runs better and rides better. Everything else is done on it. So let's get in the shop, and we'll start messing with it, get the old stuff ripped out, and get the new stuff installed. So here's a little bit closer look at the setup. The boat is in the shop now. So yeah, get rid of that old carburation unit on there, and we're opening up all the fresh stuff. So basically it's got a Airboat fuel pump on it. I did the A1000 on there. This would be, what was in here? That's a top hat in case I wanted to run like a turbo or something. Yep. And then here's my regulator. So Airboat regulator, Airboat fuel pump, and then we get into the good stuff right here. Our Holley Sniper EFI system. I like this. Looks like a really nice system. So because of the room on this boat, one of the issues I had with wanting to run like a regular intake is, where is my filter and stuff going to go? As you guys know, regular intake with a throttle body would totally change everything up. And unfortunately, with the way this boat's set up, it'd be very difficult for me to put that on there. So I opted for their 4150 flange Holley EFI system. Now, I'm not saying this is the perfect setup for anybody. This is what I chose. This thing's capable, I think, of like 1,250 horsepower worth of fuel if we want it. So we can put some nitrous to it. We can put a turbo on it. We can throw a pro charger on it, anything we want. But we're gonna start with this. Let's see how it does. It's got some massive injectors in there. And then it comes with its whole system here. Basically, we're gonna have to, let's see here. We got quite a bit there. We got an O2 sensor, we got a couple wiring harnesses, all of our stuff here. Basically, we got a little LCD monitor, which I know is not waterproof. We'll have to keep that thing tucked away. But either way, we got several things here. And basically, this beast wired in, and probably have my boy Dr. Toonball come over here and help me dial it in as far as that goes. So, Sniper EFI system, this thing should be ready to rip, man. It should run a lot better.
If the front of the motor's, if this is the front of the motor, you put this way, right?
Do what?
You don't put this carburetor on sideways, right? That's how this works.
Carburetor on sideways. Well, I mean, it's not a carburetor. You got me confused there. I'm like, what are you talking about, man?
I just wasn't sure if you wanted to run the throttle cable out the side or something. Maybe do a little something different.
Nah, I think we're good on that.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I think we'll just mount it like a regular one.
All right. Fair enough.
So got all our nice connectors. Everything's nice, nice and insulated, so shouldn't have any problem with moisture or anything. They did say I could see an issue. The computers are actually mounted inside the throttle body on this thing, and my guy did warn me that I could see some issues with, you know, moisture. So that's why I'm saying I don't highly recommend this for an airboat, but I've had this sitting here and I've been wanting to put it on. So we're gonna try it. If it works, great, and it works out for us. If we do have issues with it, we'll go from there. So first things first, get this thing tore apart, and we'll get that beast set on there and start doing a wiring job on it and wiring it up.
Good news is we're pretty used to doing stuff 2 times, so.
No, we're not. I know, right? At least 2 times.
All in all, I think it's pretty clean. It's in pretty good shape, so. You know, I'll take a rag, a little bit of brake cleaner, and wipe it off. I think we'll be good to go with that. Set a new carburetor on it with a new fuel injection. It is really pretty much that simple. I mean, it's basically just a carburetor. We'll put our throttle plate back over here and get her bolted down. I think I'm gonna go a little longer studs on this. I don't really like the way those. I needed a plate to mount the fuel pump on, so I marked this out. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this out. This is a piece of 1/4-inch aluminum. I got some screws. I'm gonna drill some holes in it and recess some screws in it, and we're gonna go ahead and mount it right there on that plate. That's where the original fuel pump was mounted. So I'm gonna try to go right back to the same spot. I'm gonna mount this on rubber so it doesn't vibrate. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it out with the jigsaw. Should cut out pretty easy. That's one more step to getting the fuel system going. I had to pull the carburetor back off it, or the fuel injection back off it. I needed to get some fuel lines. Needed to get some return springs for the carburetor. Had a couple little things like that I needed to get. So I went and got those between last night and this morning. I went and got all that stuff. So we should have everything we need now to get the fuel system all done on this thing and get this baby back on the water. I know he's ready to be out on. All right, we got our piece, like some around the edges of it, and drill a couple holes in it, recess them. We got some bolts to go in there. We'll get the pump mounted on it. So go from there. I don't really like the way those holes marked out, so I'm just gonna center punch them. Alright, I'll take this over there and mark out my other holes I'm going to drill in it. We'll get those drilled too. That works sometimes. Good enough to mark it, I guess. Can't have it all. Alright. So we got those countersunk. I don't have a countersink bit. That's why I had to do it with a couple different bits, step it down in there. But it worked. We're good now. So that's all we needed. So I'm gonna get this mounted on the boat. Then we'll get the fuel pump mounted on that. And all right, so it turns out that we were not even close to being ready to put the carburetor on yet. I'd set it on there very prematurely. I actually had to get longer studs for the carburetor. I had to make a new feed line for the side of it because the 2 I had, neither one of those would work. So I had to redo those. Got that taken care of. I went ahead and installed the fuel pump. I made that little plate, which I kind of showed making that plate. I got it bolted on. You can see the bolts are inset in there. You can see them right there. That's the bolts that hold it to the bracket. Then I went ahead and put the bolts in the fuel pump. I went ahead and ran the feed line for the fuel. We may wind up putting an inline filter in there, but for right now I hooked it up. And so now we've got everything cleaned off. I'm gonna put the studs on top of the carburetor, or in the top of the intake, and I'm ready to put the spacer plates on it and the gaskets and set the carburetor on, and then that'll be final assembly. I'll hook the throttle cable back up, which gotta make some pieces for the throttle cable, but I'll get you back up here, get you a good little view, and we'll set that baby on. All right, so we got some new studs, a little longer. Get these screwed down in here, get them good and tight. Yes, sir, much better. So I got all our wires ran. I just ran everything down here, ran it up into the harness, and I've got this purple wire has to tie into the gray ignition wire in the MSD box. So I got this here. I've got some extra wire loom. Once I get this hooked up, then I'll cover it in wire loom. It also goes up to the tack, so I got to tie into it, but the tack has to stay in it because it's got a tack up there in the console. And that pink wire is going to be the ignition wire. I'll show you that in a minute. This whole setup so far has been very simple. There is not a lot to it. It is a very good system. Now the ignition box is hooked up. Now we'll just get up here and hook this ignition wire to turn the box on and off. All right, so I figured I'd kind of show you guys how I get these fuel lines in here, just in case anybody's wondering. So what I did is I already put a fitting on that hose, and I screwed it into the pump, right, or the regulator right here. So now I'm gonna run this down through here, and I want it to run along this bar, and I want it to come down to here. So I'm gonna put you over here for a second and try to show you, kind of just give you an idea of how I get that done. I hope that's a pretty good view. Now what I do is I've got another fitting. This is the fitting I'm going to use in this pump. So I go ahead and screw this onto the end of this pump. And then what I do is I take my hose and kind of run it this way. I just try to get it as hidden as best I can. And then I'll put my finger on there, and then I've got a soapstone, and I'll just mark that hose, and it gives me my length I need. Unfortunately, I don't think I have my soapstone over here with me. I think it's on the table. So I'm just going to take this hose off here, and I'll also take you over there and kind of show you how these hoses work. This is, sorry, I'm unscrewing this hose. This is kind of I mean, for a lot of people, this is going to be a real common fitting to use. For a lot of people, it's not going to be. So this is the same fittings we also used on the big truck on Burgundy. So now I'll take you over there and show you how you install this. I got the hose out there, and then I went ahead and marked it. So now what I've found that cuts these the best, sometimes you got to use a razor blade, and kind of get a few of the threads cut. I try to do this with one hand. It's not as easy as you would think. You get these down. These are just PVC pipe cutters, but they work really good. There's a little bit of wire in this hose, so you can't really just cut it with a knife. Sorry, I had to use my hand to put a little pressure on the blade. They work. I need to use my other hand to cut it, but you see this works good, and I'll show you when it's done. I know I kind of fiddled around there. It's probably hard for you to see, but that's what it looks like when you're done cutting it. So I I give it a little squeeze, get it centered up, and then I'll show you how to put it in the clamp. And so now what you do is you take this fitting apart, and this fitting, slide this end over the hose. Slide it all the way in until it touches where the threads are right there. Then you take a little bit of, I just use this assembly lube. I think it works good for this. It's a pretty heavy lubricant. It kind of holds on good. I haven't had any problems with it yet, so I'm going to continue using it. I'm sure there's a million other things, including grease or probably WD-40 or anything else. So then you put that, you get that to go down into your hose. And it starts pretty easy. And then the way I do it is I get this screwed in there a little ways. And you'll start feeling some resistance. So then when I get to that point, I put it in the vise like this. And then I take the soapstone and I mark the backside of the fitting so I know if that hose starts pushing out, because you don't want this to push that hose out. So then I take my hand, I put it on the other side of the vise, kind of put some pressure on that hose to kind of hold it in there. And I just take a adjustable wrench, because I don't have AM wrenches. You just go ahead and run that thing down in there. That was a pretty good one. I don't know if you guys saw that. The thing popped right out of my hand. And then I try to line these up. There's really no reason to do it. I think it looks better that way, so that's how I do it. But you can see, moved out maybe 1/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, so that'll be just fine. So that's just how you use those fittings. Of course, it's the same fittings on all these hoses. It's the same fittings that we use. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this installed on the boat, and that'll be, other than the return line, that's all the feed lines for the fuel. I have to put a O2 sensor bung in, so I went ahead and drilled a hole in the backside of that header, and I'm gonna go ahead and weld it in. So I got the bung welded in there. Now I can thread a O2 sensor in it, and it plugs into that plug right there. So we're one step closer. I'll get that plugged in, get the exhaust tightened back up. I gotta slide the exhaust up, tighten it back up, and that's all done. And then I think we just gotta hook up the ignition and tidy up a couple of last little things. All right, so like I said, one of the last things I had to do was I have to get this ignition hooked up right here. I'm not exactly sure which wire is the ignition wire, so I'm gonna go ahead and test it. Let's just double check. That's our wire we're looking for right there. I got some crimpers right here, a wire connector right here, and I got a screwdriver. So we'll go ahead and make this up a wire. We'll leave this a little bit long just because it's good and secure. Now we'll run these bolts back around the outside of it.
Well, guys, my boy's been hustling on the boat this week, trying to get it ready for the weekend, and he thinks he got it. So went ahead and put a Holley Sniper EFI on, as you guys saw. Justin did all new fuel lines, fuel pump. I had all this stuff sitting here for a while. I was just basically waiting to install it, and like I said at the beginning of the video, once the carburetor started messing up on me, I said, all right, it's time to put it in. So basically went to a Holley EFI on there. We're gonna give it a shot. This thing is a nice kit, I think. We'll see how it does. Hopefully everything works out good on it and we have a good time with it, and the boat runs a lot better, I'm hoping. So basically, I haven't really had this boat for a long time, so it's pretty awesome to have it back. I love taking the boat out and ripping it. So Justin's basically been back here working on it. Everything's programmed right now as far as we're gonna program it. So I will go ahead and let's just see. We did prime the system, but we're gonna bring you guys along to see if it starts. So hopefully
I think it will.
There's a fuel pump. Just kicking on. And then basically we got a little monitor here. I'm gonna close back out of that, and I guess actually we'll just wash our vitals here. Actually, it comes with a little thing. Without it, this thing's doesn't like to work very well. So
when you get it running, I'll adjust the floats, and we don't have to
no
do
more carburetor, bull. Thank God, dude. Carburetor's before my time. Had a little low.
I wonder if it's that, or I wonder if it's... Oh, no, it's got plenty of fuel.
Should have fuel in it.
Yeah, it does. What'd you do?
I don't know. We'll see what's going on here. That fuel pump's not kicking back on, though. How's our pressure? I hear a click, though. I hear a spark over there. Do you hear it clicking?
Yeah. Got it? Oh, now you got it over here between this coil and the bolt.
So she's arcing over there for some reason.
It's got to have a short in that ignition. Yeah. This wiring harness, the coil harness. It's got a short in it, or...
Well, we got a little issue. Let's see what we can do about it. What's up?
It's just smoking out of the breather.
Well, I think it's literally we just backfired, unless it's
fire inside the motor, is it?
I don't know if that's even possible.
I don't know if it is either.
I don't think so. I don't know. We have a spark issue over there, which was an underlying issue from before. So I will. I don't know.
It's heavy.
Yeah. But that's done that before. It blew. I blew backfire one time and blew the valve cover gaskets out.
Really?
Whenever a coil went bad, it backfired so hard it blew the valve cover gaskets out.
That all 4 of these coils, there's a good chance that none of them are firing.
Yeah.
Or not firing correctly.
Well, let's see what it does tomorrow. I guess we'll get back on her and hope for the best.
I'll pull this off, figure out why it's because it's arcing between the coils and the valve covers, between the valve cover and the head. So it definitely has something.
A major short somewhere.
A major short somewhere.
Cool. All right. Back on her tomorrow.
So we're back. I went ahead and pulled all the ignition coils off. On the other side, I found one that had a crack by the bolt hole and one that had a crack in the top of it. So that may be the problem. I'm assuming that is going to be an issue. I also found one on this side that has a crack in it. So I just pulled them all off. I'm going to clean everything up, check all the wiring harnesses, make sure there's no problems with that. And then you have a ground right here on the front of the motor. You have a ground. And I cleaned the one up on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and clean this one up on this side also, just to make sure that's not a problem. I don't think it is, but I just want to double check, make sure we don't have any issues. So I'm going to go ahead and put the coil packs back on this side. All right, so like I said, got all the coil packs back on this side. I left the one off that was cracked. When I get those, or on their way, when I get it, I'll put that one back on, get it all buttoned up. But hopefully that'll take care of the problem. I changed the throttle cable because this throttle cable had a splice down by the foot pedal and it's almost wore through. So I went and grabbed another piece of cable this morning and I'm gonna go ahead and get that changed. So we'll work on that right now.
Well guys, what a crazy week we've had, ups and downs with this boat. I didn't show you the last little bit where we actually had the oil drain plug. We went to go service it and the helicoil pulled out of the oil pan. That was a fun experience. So we were able to get that sorted out, got it fixed. And now we did get the boat running. It did fire up. So I wanted to do first initial fire up, but after that whole situation, it was just, man. So we got the brake going on it. So now I have a brake on the boat, which is nice. And on top of that, we got our throttle set. Everything's good there. We've got the fuel injection on. Airboat 1000 fuel pump. Ooh, she's on. 60 pounds of pressure. There you go. She's still learning a little bit. We did not put a tune or anything in it. It's still learning. Basically, you gotta learn all the stuff, get its air fuel mixture right. But I mean, she's sounding freaking good. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. about. There it is. So she's sounding really good. Sounds like it's gonna run real good. We're gonna do a water catch tomorrow. We just had new polymer put on the boat. We're gonna see how that goes. And this Holley fuel injection, we'll see how she does tomorrow. Let's go.